So thanks for making it tonight, and we'll get going. We're going to talk about the big picture is about making lucid dreaming easy and accessible. That's really where we're going tonight. And so we're preparing the way for impactful lucid dreams. So yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, just put them in the Q&A and I'll be able to get to them. And so I wanted to just say, I'm Ryan D. Hurd, and why not just go by Ryan Hurd? Because this guy, right? This guy is a famous Nashville-based country musician. One of his most popular songs is called Day Drinking. And in fact, some of his fans used to tag me on Twitter saying that they were day drinking with Ryan Hurd. And I would be like, what's happening? Who is day drinking? Why is this happening? And then I finally figured it out. So yeah, I submit I'm Ryan D. Hurd. So why are we here? You're in the right place tonight if you haven't had a lucid dream yet, or maybe you've had like a micro lucid dream or a lucid moment, and you're looking for more. Or if you've had some lucid dreams, but you really want to hone your skills and make it more of a regular practice so that they're coming more regularly. If you're feeling overwhelmed or burned out by trying to lucid dream from all of the advice and all the weird suggested practices that can come with this, I'm probably not the only one who's tried like not going to the bathroom all the way through the night to spur a lucid dream. I'm not saying I recommend that practice, but right, there's some weird stuff going on with these practices. If you're here because you want to play with some new ideas about dreams, consciousness, lucidity, stretch your paradigm of reality, learn some new things, this is going to be fun tonight. And if you want to go lucid to meet specific goals in your life, and so you're using lucid dreaming, or you would like to use lucid dreaming for creativity, for self-growth, for wellness, right? For holistic health, could be artistic goals, moving deeper into a spiritual practice. Like lucid dreaming is a platform for all of these things. So we've talked about who I'm not, and who am I am a dream researcher and an educator and an author. And I've written a number of books, including Sleep Paralysis. And I've also the co-editor of Lucid Dreaming, New Perspectives on Consciousness and Sleep. That was co-edited with Kelly Bulkeley, 2-volume reference set collection. And most recently, I wrote a little book called Lucid Talisman, Forgotten Lore, which is about how to use amulets and talismans for lucid dreaming practice. So I am on the faculty for several universities and institutes. I'm a lecturer at National University, which is based in California. I'm an adjunct professor for the University for Peace, which is based in Costa Rica, and I teach there once a year as part of their program on Indigenous and Peace Studies. I teach dreaming for them. I teach dreaming as a paradigm for decolonization and for autobiographical studies. And I also do some teaching for the Rhine Research Institute. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're the folks that came up with the Zener cards. They're basically, J.B. Ryan pretty much invented parapsychology. And so it's really great when I can work with them. And I teach other places, such as the Institute for Dream Studies. And I've also been lecturing at many other universities too, including Stanford, University of California, and a lot of others, okay? So the last thing I'll say is that I am not a super duper lucid dreamer. So I have spontaneous lucid dreams, and I have since I was a kid. But when I'm left to my own devices, they're irregular. I might, experience them a handful of times throughout the year. I had a hot spell when I was in my 20s for sure. That was kind of cool. And I blame coffee for that mostly. But unless I'm doing my lucid dreaming strategies today, I don't have a lot of lucid dreams. And so we're going to cover the lucid dreaming strategy that works for me, that really basically doubles, triples my rate. So what we're going to cover today is a few things. You're going to learn the 3 crucial prerequisites to lucid dreaming. We're going to talk about some myths or some untruths about lucidity. And again, we're going to talk about this method that I use to consistently double my own lucid dreaming totals. And of course, we're going to talk about why do we lucid dream in the first place? You know, how does it enhance creativity? How can it bring on self-growth? And it re-energizes waking life. Lucid dreaming is a really special thing. So I invite you to stick around to the end of the presentation, because I'll give you the link for my ebook, Preparing for Lucidity. It's a download. It's nice. It doesn't go on and on. It's nice and focused, and it'll lay everything out to prepare you for a successful lucid dreaming practice and reinforcing what we go over tonight. So I want to talk about, how did I figure out the trick to calling lucid dreaming reliably and not burning out in the process? And so how it happened is that I worked as an archaeologist for about the first decade as I came out of college. And in the end of that spell, I was doing some consulting, and I was going out to Nicaragua, where I was doing some consulting on Ometepe Island, which is an island in the middle of Lake Nicaragua, which has all this beautiful prehistoric rock art. And there's a picture of one of the classic iconic spirals. It's called the Island of Spirals, right? It's a really dreamy place to be. It's really fantastic. And so I went there to help record and survey the rock art that is on this volcanic island. And I went also thinking I could do some of my own dream research while I'm here, knowing that I could perhaps have my own lucid dreams on Ometepe Island. And what if I could use my own lucid dreams to help me learn things, or at least learn about my projections and biases of what I think rock art is about when I'm on Ometepe Island. So basically using first-person field methods to accentuate third-person methods for archaeology. And I ended up publishing a peer-reviewed article on this titled Integral Archaeology. And yeah, lucid dreaming was one of those practices. So here's the thing. When I was on Ometepe Island, I did a lot of things that I don't normally do. Well, number one, I was in culture shock. That was huge, right? So my vigilance was really up. I was speaking a language that I don't speak well. I have some high school Spanish. And so that was, increasing my vigilance levels. And so you could say that I had already broken free of cognitive domestication, right? That kind of feeling where we become entrained by our own routines every day. I had busted through that. Travel is amazing at this, right? And so besides this sort of natural vigilance, I was also doing a lot of journaling. I was journaling all about my sense impressions, as well as taking journaling at these rock art sites. And I was journaling all of my dreams. I was using all of my free time to basically do journaling. And on top of that, I did some sleep practices. I wasn't sleeping all that great to start with. Howler monkeys. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before, right? Howler monkeys. Yeah, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And they are really active. They woke me up. I was like, what is that? And I was able to do some of these middle of the night practices, that really helps with lucid dreaming. So I would not basically been able to go lucid had all this not squished together. This was the aha moment. But I wouldn't have had so much success with lucid dreaming if I hadn't been attended to the prerequisites of lucidity, if there hadn't been some certain things that were foundational that I already had basically tucked away. And a case in point here is, when both of my kids were young and they were infants, I wasn't sleeping well either then. I had vigilance out the roof, right? Because you've got a newborn in the house. I was basically doing polyphasic sleeping, waking up every 3 hours to help feed infants. I was interrupting dreams, right? So what I noticed is that I was having an initial spike of lucid dreams during that time, but I wasn't doing practices and I wasn't grounded enough and wasn't motivated to do lucid dreaming. And so what happened is that I didn't become very lucid during this period because I was exhausted and it wasn't a good time to try to induce lucid dreams. And so no matter how many lucid dreaming practices you do, if you're not grounded, if it's not a good time to do so, if these requirements aren't met, then you're going to have a harder time. So this is what I learned on Ometepe Island, where I had lucidity through the roof. I was able to use all these lucid dreams on the island itself, where I would say, oh, I'm lucid, I'm dreaming. I know that I'm dreaming. Let's go look at rock art in my dreams. And I would basically just wander around and interact with my mind's meta version of what prehistoric rock art is. So there's a lot of reasons that people may be motivated to lucid dream. And I just gave you an example from my story that was really about, about research, basically. But there's a lot of different kinds of perspectives. And I wonder if y'all are interested, put it in the chat what you think are like the top pursuit for lucid dreaming. Like, why do you think most people want to go lucid in a dream? And I'm not saying necessarily why you do, but I'm wondering what do you think is the big picture of why people are focused about? I'm seeing escapism, so flying, sex. I'm seeing self-growth, making money, having powers. Yes, having powers like Dragon Ball Z. That's awesome. Spiritual growth, healing. Justin says, I want to understand, is there more to our conscious experience? Great. So it's like, a philosophy, basically. Controlling the dream, personal growth. This is great. Exploring what we are, another kind of philosophical take, a cognitive take on what is the nature of consciousness and what can lucidity bring. Yeah, this is all really interesting stuff. Exploring a different realm. Nice. All right, we'll stop there. So let's take a look at the top #1 pursuit is actually flying. So this is from a demographic study in 2009 done by Kelly Bulkley. I'm sorry, actually it was done by Stumbriez and Erlacher. And so this was a huge study asking people, why do you lucid dream? Flying is #1. And #2, talking with dream characters. 18% of their respondents said that they love to just interact with dream characters and see what they're like. Are they conscious, right? What happens when you test those boundaries? And then #3, sex. Yeah, it's the safest sex possible, right? I mean, you're in a dream world. And so this is awesome. In general, what the study found, that these dream researchers found in the study, is that most people want to do things that they can't do in waking life. So they want to do the impossible, right? They want to like test and go beyond. And that was over half respondents, basically. Other folks wanted to improve everyday skills. And so use it for problem solving and for getting over fears and for, testing your mettle against things that you do in waking life that perhaps cause you some anxiety or that you want to have practice with, say like speaking in public, right? And then the last one was just in general, communication. And this was 27% of respondents. So meaning talking with dream characters, interacting with them, exploring what they say, asking for information, asking, as Robert Wagner says, asking my higher self, what is the nature of reality? Like these kind of, verbal kind of questions and thinkings. That is why people start off wanting to lucid dream. But what we're going to talk about today is of how impactful lucid dreams can go deeper than this. And so this is something that where my work is, I would say this is my bias to my work. This is the way that I see lucid dreaming, is that lucid dreaming practices re-energize the soulful aspect of our lives. And so what does that look like on the ground? It could look like creativity. So using lucid dreaming to make and listen to music, or go into your dream gallery and see a painting that's never been painted, or computer code, finding really good, clean code, mathematical, passion, right, can come through lucid dreaming. Writing is something that people use lucid dreaming for, interacting with the dream characters of their novel and learning things about their characters that maybe they wouldn't have thought of before, right? So this is really interesting stuff. Also, folks who are interested in peak performance. And so really, really focused athletes, rock climbers, gymnasts, basketball players have found, and there's peer-reviewed studies that show this too, that when they practice specific motor skills in their lucid dreams, their actual skills in waking life improve. So they make more baskets per minute, or they're able to climb with more confidence, or they're able to stick a pose in gymnastics that they couldn't stick before, stick a landing, right? So all of these things show how lucid dreaming can map our body awareness, and we can practice in a place that's safe, and learn and improve. And then self-growth, and this is something that came up in the chat, right? Like how do we improve ourselves? How do we face old fears or develop new myths for ourselves? Lucid dreaming allows us to play with these possibilities, to develop courage, to develop compassion for all the parts of ourself, right? And then lastly, connecting with the big dream. And so sort of like what I heard in the chat today about this, like this philosophical sense about exploring what we are and what is our role in this universe. We can connect with the divine, however you see the divine, right? I'm not trying to put anybody in a box here. Perhaps it means the ancestors, or if you're an existentialist or an atheist, it could be the ground of being. But lucid dreaming offers us this ability to move outside of our smaller awareness into larger, even transpersonal and mystical spaces, right? Non-duality even. And so the benefits of lucid dreaming for waking life are vast. And again, this stuff comes out of the peer-reviewed literature. This is coming out of what psychologists are saying today, that lucid dreaming provides emotional resilience for folks. It improves creativity. It increases motivation and even IQ, which I think in that sense, the IQ increases are coming out of motivation again, because they're sort of tied to that. But connecting in a personal sense to what's really important. How do I do that? I ask a question to the dream. I open myself up to the unknown, right? So these are some of the benefits of lucid dreaming. We become courageous. Our small problems in life suddenly seem even smaller when we're like, well, I can fly. So, so it's going to work out, because this is the way I see it. It's all the same dreaming mind, whether we're awake, whether we're asleep. but we're not necessarily, right, the same person in the sense that we don't have the same access to consciousness. It's different. We're in an altered state of consciousness, right? We know that in lucid dreams and in dreams in general, for instance, that we have greater access to long-term memory, right? Things that you haven't thought or felt or seen in a long time can emerge in a sense to be like, what is this? And how can I integrate this with who I am today, right? We become mythic dreamers when we notice this, and we can ask ourselves, what myth am I playing in this dream? And what does it say about the myth that I'm playing, in waking life? Or what, we have more than one, more than one myth, who is the dreamer, right? Whose dream is this? The questions get really big really fast with lucid dreaming, which is something that I've always loved about that. We start talking about the big picture. We start talking about, what is it that we don't see? What is mysterious? What is unknown? And there's more questions, and perhaps there's more questions than answers always, but I love that about lucid dreaming. So let's talk about 4 myths to lucid dreaming. And I put here untruths because I like to use the word myth in a positive sense, being the stories and the narratives that are larger than life. And so what are the untruths about lucid dreaming? And this is stuff that I have to sort of consistently debunk in my work, and that I've been doing for, I guess, 20 years now as I do lucid dreaming education. And the first one is that lucid dreaming is a fantasy. It's a new age fantasy. It's, it's not really real. And the thing is, of course, that no, it's been around for a really, really long time. And in fact, mystics, philosophers, esoteric circles have been using lucid dreaming to delve into larger realities for as long as we have been human, and maybe even longer, right? Maybe even longer than we were Homo sapiens. Questions that there's not answers to. It's why I've got this picture of this Paleolithic rock art here, is that this figure, the Birdman, could be lucid dreaming. This is one of the theories that comes out of this cave drawing. And why they think that is because as the Birdman is kind of leaning back with his hands back, you've noticed that he's got a mighty erection. And one thing that we know about REM dreaming, REM sleep, and lucid dreaming is that, guess what? There is blood flow to the genitals. It comes and goes. It's a natural part of REM sleep. When we're in trance, when we are in a shamanistic trance, when we are dreaming, we often have engorged genitalia. And here it is 30,000 years ago on a rock cave wall. I think that's interesting. Was this a lucid dream? So the second myth is that lucid dreaming isn't natural. And I hear this from different sectors of of the world. Some psychologists have argued that being lucid, knowing that you're dreaming, gets in the way of the function of dreams, and it can be even damaging. I used to hear it more from Jungians. I think Robert Wagner has done a really amazing job building bridges to show Jungian psychologists about the naturalness of lucid dreaming. But the thing is about that problem is about lucidity getting in the way of the function of dreams is that nobody really agrees what the function of dreaming is. I mean, there's really no one clear theory. And so that's a difficult one to argue, right? And then others have argued that it's not natural in the sense that it's supernatural, that it's maybe going down a dark path, that it's witchcraft. I hear this more from conservative religious communities. And, no. And in fact, Christian mystics and many other religions have used lucid dreaming for prayer and for meditation for thousands of years, right? And look at dream yoga, look at Hinduism, and yoga nidra as a practice. Sleep meditation is a thing, right? And so, yeah, so it's natural, and it's been used for many purposes. And don't forget, by the way, that a lot of people go lucid dreaming spontaneously. So one of the studies that came out asking people demographically about, have you ever had a dream where you knew you were dreaming? And the respondents came out to 62%. So over half of folks have a lucid dream once in their life, right? I think that's interesting. So we're a lot more lucid in our dreams as a society than I think is really noticed. So this third untruth is that lucid dreaming is the same as controlling your dream. And this is a fine point here, because dream control is related to lucidity and it overlaps with lucidity and lucid dreaming, but it's not automatic. And sometimes you can have a lucid dream where there's not an ability to shift or manipulate much of the dream fabric. And of course, there's also dream control that happens without lucidity. And so particularly the dreams of gamers, video gamers, tend to have a lot of control dreams because they're spending a lot of their time in an immersive world where things are more malleable, and in dreaming is, enters into that, kind of paradigm. So it really depends on the aim of the dreamer about how much control are you trying to have in a lucid dream, and how much is appropriate to the task at hand, right? Like for me, dream control is not a big part of my life. I'm more interested in what the dream brings to me. But I absolutely think about dream control in the sense of controlling my own responses, making my own choices. So I like to reframe it that way, that lucid dreaming is more about choice than it is about control. And then the last myth, of course, is that lucid dreaming can't be learned. And this is not true. It absolutely can be learned. Even if you are 50 years old and you've never had a lucid dream before, you can learn the techniques and the tactics for having a lucid dream, right? And the latest research shows that having layered methods, so multiple practices simultaneously, are the most effective for going lucid. And so, but it's more than just a cognitive game, which is something that we're going to talk about more tonight. There's more to it than that. So what happens though when we're not properly prepared for lucid dreaming, when we've not had our prerequisites? One of the biggest things that I see is that when we don't go lucid at all, when we don't instantly succeed, a lot of people burn out, right? They drop out. I would say the frustration that comes out of this is because of an assumption that because we do a practice for lucid dreaming and we don't have a lucid dream immediately, that we failed. But what I like to say is that lucid dreams are like cats. They're not like dogs. So you can call a cat, by all means, call a cat. It works best at dinner time, right? But they kind of come on their own accord. So we can relax a little bit and know that the work that we do happens, but in its own way, in its own time. We burn out. And so we burn out when we don't succeed, when we try a bunch of random practices that are disruptive to our life, like not going to the bathroom at night and hoping that will spur on a lucid dream, because we'll end up having a dream about taking a pee in the toilet. Danger zone, right? Right. And so we can burn out by trying all these random practices, and maybe they don't work and we don't really know what to do. And then the last thing is that folks sometimes freak out. And I see this with beginner lucid dreamers all the time. The first time you try to control something and the dream kicks back, the dream has a response, and maybe it's not what you expected. Maybe it's not always like lights and sunshine and rainbows, when something unusual or bizarre happens, our first response is to get scared and to get out, right? And a lot of people don't lucid dream again because something happens against their conscious expectation, right? And so managing that and being ready, basically flexible thinkers and ready for the bizarre to come, is a skill that we develop over time. So I'm going to ask you for chat, does this sound familiar? Have you been in this boat before? Have you ever burned out? Have you ever freaked out? Have you ever gotten frustrated from trying these lucid practices? Let me know in the chat that I'm onto something. Yeah, so I'm seeing a lot of times I immediately wake up. Dory says, yeah, you're right on. That's why classes are so helpful. Someone says, yeah, I freaked out once with getting lucid with a scary dream. Some people say I'm hesitant to lucid dream because of negative sleep paralysis hallucinations, frustration, getting woken up too fast. Had a few lucid dreams and then just went blank for months. Oh, and this is an interesting one from Justin. There's not a good correlation between practice and success. Boom. Yeah. Yeah. And how do you know what worked? That's a really big problem with the lucid dreaming education movement. How do you know which practice worked for you? It seems spontaneous. Doesn't matter how I practice. I end up just falling asleep. This is great. Thank you all for participating in this. This is really helpful for me to see that this is resonating with you. And Kim says, sometimes I get frustrated because I'm trying to lucid dream and I've had just one in the last 4 months. Okay, thanks for that. That's really helpful. So yeah. This is the thing. So let's have a little real talk. Let's talk about what lucid dreaming can be like and its nature. It is disruptive to your life sometimes to do these practices. That is a part of the puzzle, is to find the time and the willingness to be able to make even some sacrifices, to do practices that can irritate your sleep partner, that involve, getting up in the middle of the night and trying something, or trying a supplement that can be a little scary to try for the first time, doing reality checks again and again and again throughout the daily life. It can be disruptive. The second thing is that lucid dreaming is ego stretching. It really, we are tested sometimes, not just with trying to have a lucid dream, but in the dreams themselves, because we're in the dream world. And the dream world is a world of emotional logic. It's bizarre. And dreams can be fantastic and enjoyable, and then they can be sometimes, kind of creepy, and we have to be ready for that creepiness. That's part of the wonder of the dream world. So we stretch ourselves when we do lucid dreaming. We take risks. We take it feels like taking a risk, which is interesting because we're just going to sleep at night. But it's a big, expensive energy sometimes for some people. And even if you don't work that hard and it happens spontaneously, it can be a risk to make a choice in a lucid dream, wondering what's going to happen next. Because I don't really know. I don't know this realm. I don't even know what's possible and what isn't possible. And so we've learned this the more we get in touch with our dream life, but this is a reality. And lastly, lucid dreaming can be an invitation for spiritual emergence. And I want to define this term because it's a psychological term from Stan and Christina Groff. It's the movement of an individual to a more expanded way of being. right? So expansion, greater freedom of personal choices, a sense of deeper connection with other people, with nature, with the cosmos. However, when spiritual emergence happens in a time where we don't have good social support, or we're not ready for it, it can be more like an emergency, right? So spiritual emergency, in which we have sort of an ego eruption where something happens and it can be destabilizing to our life. Not in a way that it's dangerous, but in a way that certainly can make us quaky a little bit and wonder, what is the nature of reality? What is the nature of a dream character? I thought it was all in my head, but now I'm learning information that I didn't think was possible from a dream character who I thought was part of myself. But now I'm beginning to wonder, right? What's the big picture here, right? And so these bigger questions about our paradigm for reality naturally emerge from lucid dreaming. And so this is part of it. This is part of the package for becoming a lucid dreamer. And it's a good thing, right? This is a good thing. It breaks our cognitive domestication. It breaks us through into a new level where we're actually changing. Again, we're transforming. We're seeing things with fresh eyes as a child does, and we're learning and playing. And so that's really what I love about lucid dreaming. When we properly prepare for lucid dreams, we play. We trip the light fantastic. We take the red pill and we take the blue pill at the same time. We literally transform. And once we start to play, the dreams begin to play right back with us. It's playful. It really is. So let's talk about securing the container. Here's the good news. It's easy to do the fun work of lucid dreaming safely and effectively. And I have 3 prerequisites that I would like to recommend to you for tonight. The first is increasing your dream recall. The second is attending to, is this the right time? And the third is looking into your set and your setting, as we say in psychedelic languaging. So we'll start with increasing dream recall. Why does it matter that we remember more dreams? So the research suggests that the greatest indicator to having more lucid dreams is having strong dream recall. Being able to remember our dreams clearly, being able to write them down, and basically developing, I would say, a relationship with our dreams. And so we have dreams and then we think about them, and that spurs on new dreams that takes the ideas further, right? So I want to, this could, I think that people get a little hung up on this. And so I want to ask you, what do you think, what would you guess that the researchers mean when they say what strong dream recall is? Like, how many dreams a week do you think a person needs to have strong dream recall? Put your guess in the chat. I want to see what y'all think about that. One per night, says one person. 2 people say that. Another person saying 10 to 15. 10 to 15 dreams a week. I'm seeing that a few times. 5 per week, 3 per night. Justin says 1 to 2 a week. These are great guesses. Adrian, dreams 7 dreams per night. Okay, wow. Wow. And then Alexander is saying my best guess is 3 to 5 dreams a night. Okay, here's what the researchers found. Their definition of strong dream recall is 3 to 4 dreams a week. 3 to 4 dreams a week is strong dream recall, right? So congrats to pretty much every single one of y'all on the chat. You are pretty much you're in the top 5% of dreamers on the planet. Like, you're a super dreamer already. Most people don't remember that many dreams. We are in a minority. So that's interesting as a baseline, but the thing is that we can remember more. by doing some practices. And the more dreams you can remember, too, I'd say there's a point of diminishing returns, but the more you can remember, the more you're likely to have these moments of lucidity by doing some work. And so let's look at some of the things you can do. And these are some recommendations. Keep a dream journal, right? I think this is essential, and I really recommend you have a physical one, or at least one where you're if you're not writing it down, you're using speech to text, because you want the dream to come through writing or speaking. Sometimes typing a dream out doesn't seem to have the same effects of recall from a process perspective, and I don't understand why that is. But the best thing you can do is to write your dreams down longhand. You want to take your dream journal and you want to review it before bed, right? You want to have it sitting right there next to your bed to remind you physically that this is important, that I want to remember my dreams. And in the morning, you want to record your dreams as soon as you can. Now, I know that this is difficult. And so if you have to get up by an alarm and you don't have time to record your dreams, what you can do is look for the central image of the dream, sort of the emotional heart of a dream. What was the most sort of vibrant scene? It could be a vibrant visual image or the most emotional part of the dream. If you can write that piece down, like in a phrase, and then come back to it later, the dream, you'll remember the dream later enough that you can write down enough of the dream. And so that's sort of a good shorthand to try. But another method is to try what I call the snooze method, which is to give yourself 5 minutes built into your waking up time. And so when your alarm goes off and you snooze, go back to the position you were in when you were awoken and move back into the dream and just start kind of scrolling through it and see what you can find. What do you see? What comes up? See if you can catch that dream. You might just feel a color or an emotion at first, right? But just see if you can catch it. And this practice of bringing dreams back into the waking world is really important, because what we're doing is we're building bridges between altered states of consciousness, from the normative waking state back from the dream world. And this is how we increase our lucidity too. And it's just true. So you don't want to, get frantic about this, but the more dreams you can remember, the better your chance of going lucid. And it sounds like y'all are already in the sweet spot, honestly. And lastly, I'd say is talk about your dreams. And so I think that when we dream share in the household is the unit, the primary unit of dream sharing in our culture. So share your dreams around the kitchen table or whenever you have a good chance to be heard for sharing your dream, and a good chance where someone's actually listening to you and not going to roll their eyes because they're late to work, right? Like, when can you have your dream be honored and listened to, even if you don't know what it means? And talking about our dreams really helps us recall more dreams. So here's the other prerequisite. Is this a good time to go lucid dreaming? Is this a good time in your life to do some of these disruptive practices? Here's some questions. Do I have time to sleep? Am I getting enough sleep? Like, if you're sleep deprived constantly and you're not getting enough sleep, you're probably not getting enough REM sleep either. And it might be difficult to be motivated to do the practices. It might be difficult to be motivated to just remember your dreams. And so if it's a super stressful time in life, or it's a stressful month out of the year, it's okay to let it go and wait until it's a better time. And so, yeah, here's some more thoughts. Do I have time to disrupt my patterns? Do I have time to read about dreams and about lucid dreaming? Do I have time to wake up in the middle of the night and meditate for an hour? Or would that really mess up my schedule the next day? Like, would that be too disruptive to my day? And then the last question being, thinking about spiritual emergence and spiritual emergency. Is your life relatively stable right now? And so, I mean, in an emotional sense, or, for instance, one of the hardest things that we can do is moving our homes. And so when we move, we're really stressed, we feel very vulnerable. We might have a lot of dreams and anxiety dreams come up, but it might not be the best time to do a bunch of lucid dreaming practices. We might just want to try to rest, right? Spend our energy resting and see what comes, rather than trying to push harder, because we're already essentially being disrupted. Okay, now we're going to talk about set and setting. So we'll start with the set. We'll start with what I call the inner container. And so this is, how do we prepare for lucid dreaming? We prepare by knowing, why do we want to be lucid? What am I going to do tonight when I have a lucid dream? When I realize I'm in a dream, what's next, right? So spend some time thinking about, why is this important to me? And you want to set strong resonant intentions. And this is something that I can go into a lot of detail with, but I'll just kind of plant that seed now, that this is important. If you don't know your motivation for why you want to go lucid, it's difficult to kind of bootstrap, into the dream world. Second, your attitude. I recommend patience and flexibility. Sort of like, if we expect that we do some practices and that the lucid dream is going to come immediately, we're in for disappointment. It doesn't always happen like that. We have to be patient with ourselves. We have to be patient with the dream. They're cats, they're not dogs. They come when they come. And we have to be flexible in our thinking, in the sense of what came. We might not have had a lucid dream, but do we have a powerful dream that we learned something? What's the value of dreaming, right? And so this is a part of the container, is being willing to listen to that which does emerge when you ask for more lucidity in my life. What shows up? And then lastly, I have a little piece here on cleansing, which is just to say that when you can think about this in a lot of ways, but going to bed with intention, going to bed with time to relax and to move into sleep without distraction, to move into sleep not with a full belly, but you think about, when you do lucid dreaming induction strategies, like, what else is going on for you in terms of your body and how you're treating it right now. Alcohol, for instance, is really shifty with dreams. Sometimes it can cause bizarre, almost nightmarish dreams to emerge. Sometimes it can make your dream life just tank completely, right? And so Mayan elders, when they are teaching their shamanic initiates, they say, you can't be a strong dreamer unless you stop drinking, period. This is interesting, right? And so I'm not saying that you need to, say, give up alcohol to do lucid dreaming, but notice your relationship to your diet and to substances in your life and your habits related to moving into sleep and waking up out of sleep. That is your set. And so the outer container is your setting. So your framework for, where is this dreaming taking place? And here, of course, I mean your home. Thinking about your home as your sanctuary, and how can I protect my sanctuary so I'm relaxed and able to go to sleep? Like, is this a good time for lucid dreaming because of my relationships right now? And who's home, right? And so the bedroom, if the home is the sanctuary, the bedroom is the inner sanctum. And so how do we treat our bedroom? Is it clean? How does it smell? Is it organized? Do we feel safe in our bedroom? These are always good questions to think about of your space. Like, how do we use that room? I recommend using the bedroom for sleep, rest, and intimacy. And so I'm not saying don't watch Netflix before bed, because I watch Netflix before bed sometimes, and I watch it on a device that's this close to my, I'm right here with it, but not when I'm trying to do lucid dreaming, right? Different times, right? Different times for different experiences. So thinking about this of the inner sanctum, how do you protect your rest? How do you make sure you get enough rest? How do you communicate your needs for rest and sleep with those who are in your home? Do you have a conversation for that? Are you able to be on your own schedule? Are you able to make it work, whether you sleep all at night or if you're on a polyphasic, And then last, I have this piece about going dark versus sharing. And what I mean here is, when we are doing powerful lucid dreaming work, especially for impactful or soulful lucid dreams, sometimes blasting our intentions over social media is not the way. Like, it's okay to have a secret, non-shared intention that you go about. And sometimes it's actually much more powerful and effective when we do that. And so it's just a question. What are my boundaries for sharing this part of my life right now? This is part of the setting. So now that your container is set, we have some questions that we're left with. How do I choose the right lucid dreaming practices? Like, which ones actually work? And how do I choose practices that work for me, that address my own roadblocks, meaning my own lucid roadblocks? Because we all have sort of our different relationship with lucid dreaming. Maybe we haven't had a dream before, or maybe we've had lucid dreams and then they've been very quiet. Or maybe we have lucid dreams, but sleep paralysis emerges and it's kind of scary, and that diminishes our ability to even want to go there. So what are our practices that address these lucid roadblocks? These are questions. It's really difficult just by looking at information to figure this stuff out. And so that's why I think about this stuff as a nested system of immersion, of practices that are done in a healthy ecology of consciousness. And so doing a couple of cognitive practices is not enough to spur on lucidity safely and sustainably. It's just not going to work for most people, right? You have to target not only how do I think, my cognition, right? But you're also targeting shifts to your body, to your soma, right? Your somatic practices, as well as your emotional center, right? Because dreaming, it is an emotional landscape. This is it. This is body, mind, and soul, right? And so keep in mind that this framework, these tips, they're not just a theory. I just didn't pull this out of the air. It's based on 25 plus years of experience with my own lucid dreams, finding what works for me, as well as working with hundreds of dreamers, and going on to peer-reviewed research and really and contributing to it as well. I've done research on galantamine that we can share in question and answer, perhaps. Evidence-based lucid dreaming shows that multi-layers and ecology of consciousness is really what we want to do if we want to have the best outcomes. And that's what the island of spirals, that's what Ometepe Island really taught me when I look back. When I went to Nicaragua and I was working as an archaeologist and I had all these amazing lucid dreams despite the howler monkeys, it happened because, and by grace of myself immersing myself in a bunch of lucid dreaming practices for a short and intense period of time, right? This is what I call lucid immersion. This is the strategy that overlays everything that I do when it comes to calling lucid dreaming. It is the strategy that overlays specific practices or tactics. And the strategy involves preparing to lucid dream, having those prerequisites mapped out, trying some practices that we know are effective for a bounded amount of time. And then after a while, 5 to 7 days, you rest, take a break, let it go, and then see what comes, see what emerges, right? It's so interesting. Sometimes you do lucid dream practices and the lucid dream comes a week later. This is not by mistake. Consciousness is slow. It has these multiple layers, right? And so you build this into your immersion practice. You do these effective practices, you rest, you see what comes, and you analyze what happened. What practices did I do? Did anything show up? Did nothing show up? Oh, okay, that's information. That's good to know, right? Like that means that next time I try this, I can try something else. I can try combining a couple of other practices together. So you check the chat here. Thank you. Yeah, so there's just a comment about the container. So this is why I didn't actually teach lucid dreaming for a number of years, because I was like, how can I teach this safely? Knowing that lucid dreaming is powerful, right? It's strong medicine, and strong medicine, if it can heal, right? If it can heal, it could possibly harm us too. And I think harming in the loose sense of we might not just be able to absorb the information that lucid dreaming gives us, that we just basically don't listen. So the container is important. So I have two things for you tonight. And the first one is a link I'm going to give you to my ebook, Preparing for Lucid Dreaming. And so if you stick around to the end, and we're almost there, we'll share that link with you. It's the first chapter of my ebook, the Lucid Immersion Guidebook. And it covers basically what we went over tonight, but in much greater detail and some more nuance. And so I'll put the link to that PDF below in a few moments. And then I want to also invite you to my full online course on this topic. I call it Lucid Ignition, Soulful Lucid Dreaming. And it's a 3-week online workshop that runs starting next Tuesday, May 30th through June 18th. And we'll be running through lucid immersion tactics together as a cohort, learning from each other. I'll be doing live workshops, and we'll be able to do some dream sharing as well in a forum. Together, learning to lucid dream and reigniting our lucid dreaming practice. It's the fastest way that I know that you can build a successful lucid dreaming practice. And I mean fastest and safest. Fastest and safest coming together, right? And in the course, we're going to start where we left off tonight. 3 weeks of dreaming together. Classes will be Tuesday and Thursday evenings at the same time as right now. So talking about 8 p.m. Eastern. And each of these workshops will be recorded as well. The class is going to show you how to induce lucid dreams when you're ready for them, right? In a sustainable fashion. It's going to help you identify your lucid roadblocks that I talked about. Like, so your own personal, right? These things that are in the way. How do we choose practices that blow up our roadblocks? And it's going to help you use your own motivations, leverage your own intentions for whatever your focused motivation is. If it's self-growth, if it's creativity, is it healing, right? So what you bring to the table, what you bring to the course is always really helpful to know in advance, because you'll have greater success if you know. And we'll even be talking about how to hone in on your lucid intentions. And so the way I see this is that lucid dreaming doesn't have to be a lot of work. It doesn't actually have to be a grind, right? We don't want to grind culture our lucid dreaming. It comes more spontaneously with grace and ease if you're doing this layered system that I've talked about, this ecology of consciousness, where we're engaging our heart and our mind and our soul, right? And I really breezed through these preparations, but the course will spend a lot of ample time talking about intentionality, as well as the right practices to use for cultivating lucid dreams. And we're going to talk about these layers. I want to show you exactly what's in the course. We're going to be talking about cognitive practices, which ones to use, which ones are most effective. What does the research say? We'll be talking about somatic practices, including sleep postures and how to incorporate supplements, and working on vestibular health, how balance relates to lucid dreaming. And then we'll be talking about what I call as the soul level or the emotional level. So we can move into lucid dreaming feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling balanced, feeling grounded, right? I call this the lucid ground, when we're able to sort of connect with that wonderful sense of belonging in the dream world, when things just open up. It's a really marvelous feeling. And we'll be talking about that as well as all the roadblocks that are getting in our way from feeling and experiencing these things. And so here's some of the details of the course. I'll be doing 5 webinars, right? It'll be in the evenings for East Coast time. For those of you on the other side of the pond, if you missed some stuff, it's recorded. The forum is going 24/7 though, and it's private. It's not Facebook. We have a course room. And of course, there's downloadable worksheets and resources that you can also have access to forever. So I wanted to just let you know that the course is available. And if you were to enroll tonight, you can get 15% off of the price. And so I believe that Jake can put the link up into either the chat, I think the chat, right? And so if you enroll tonight and you go into the cart and you put in WOLD as a coupon code, you can get 15% off the course. And this should work whether or not you do either payment plan. And you know what I'm actually realizing is that I'm not sure if I made the coupon. So I'm going to give you a different coupon. All right, y'all are gonna love this actually. Because I forgot the coupon. Let me see if I can find the other one. All right, instead of using world, I'm going to put it in the chat, the coupon you can use. The word is portal, and it actually gives you 20% off. So you just got a 5% bonus off of the price of the course if you use portal as the coupon. Okay, so my mistake is your gain. I really hope you take me up on this offer. I think that this could be a really fun course. We've already got a good group coming together, and I just want to ask yourself, like, where do you want to be with your own lucid dreaming practice in a month from now, right? Or 6 months from now? Do you want to be spinning your wheels, or do you want to be spinning around the multiverse? That's my presentation to you tonight. Again, use the portal code if you want to enroll tonight. And we'll now go into question and answer. So if you haven't put any questions into the Q&A yet, do so now, and we'll have some time for some open discussion. Looks like, yeah, we're set up well for timing. And also, Jake, if you haven't yet already, if you could also share the link for the Preparing for Lucidity ebook. And so y'all can download that ebook now. Make sure you get it before you leave. And it's a PDF. And it's done in a way that it really works well on computers as well as on tablets. It'd be too small to read, I think, on a mobile, but it works well with the larger screen readers. So with that, I'm going to stop the screen share, and then we'll move into our Q&A. So, okay, great. I'm seeing some really great, seeing some questions going on here. Looking good. And I want to just check out the chat too. Wonderful. Thanks, y'all. So if you have a question, put it in the Q&A. So I'm gonna move through these, and we'll see, and let me know if this is helpful, okay? So I'm seeing a question about what's your opinion on Kalia zakatishi or any other dream herb? Are there any supplements that you recommend or support? So yeah, so this is something that, that I've experimented with myself personally, dream herbs in general. And I've also done some research and published about galantamine, which would be the supplement that I would recommend the most. But Kalia zakatishi is an herb. It's very interesting. It's terrible tasting if you drink it as a tea. So be warned if you try to do that. But it is effective, especially for not so much REM dreams, but for lengthening your hypnagogic recall. So stage 2 sleep, right? As you're drifting off to sleep, and not the narrative style dreams, but when you start having images show up or sounds, things like that. Kalia zakatishi really kind of elongates that period and can make for some really cool dreams. In that, but like I said, I really would recommend galantamine more so. It's the only lucid dreaming supplement right now that has peer review support for it, and that's my research with the University of Texas that I did with Scott Sparrow, as well as Stephen LaBerge's work and his co-authors, Kristen Lamarca, and I think Ben Baird may have been involved with that study. Both of these research groups, we both did double-blind placebo testing with some participant groups and found that lucid dreaming is doubled, if not tripled, by the use of galantamine at the right time. And that's huge, right? That's really huge. And so, yeah, that's where I would go with that. And I've seen just a related question about megadosing of vitamin B6, and I would say I do not recommend megadosing with B6. B6 can be a poison if you megadose. You can really hurt yourself, actually, with B6. Some people do have more vivid dreams if they have some more B6 in their, before they go to sleep. And so it can cause more vivid dreams for some, but other people, it gives an upset stomach and also problems with falling asleep. And so besides the problem of poisoning, it's just not, it's the research behind it isn't quite there. So I'm seeing the comment, what if we're all participating in a lucid dream right now? So this is the question, right? Are we in a lucid dream right now? And so like, how do you know? What's your favorite reality check? I'll teach you mine. My favorite reality check is pinching my nose and then trying to breathe. I can't breathe right now, so I'm probably awake. But if I try that in a dream, I can still breathe. So that is, no reality check, so to speak, is foolproof, but that one is pretty good for me. I'm seeing a question about nicotine. So nicotine has a pretty interesting relationship with REM, and there has been some evidence that if people who aren't used to nicotine take it in the middle of the night, say through a patch, that it can induce vivid dreams, and any kind of vivid or bizarre dream is a chance to go lucid, to realize, oh, I'm in a dream right now. And so it might have an indirect effect. But as you know, nicotine has a lot of other problems with it associated as well. And one of them, of course, is habituation, right? And so you lose the effect very quickly. I'm seeing a really good question about, it says, when you say take a break, does that include reality testing? All right, so in this lucid immersion method, when I say take a break from your practices, I absolutely mean reality testing too. Like, let yourself rest after you do a focused period of time of doing practices. Really just let it go and see what emerges. And this is just part of the research that comes out of creativity studies as well as motivation studies, is we just allow ourselves to move back into flow a little bit, right? I mean, have you ever noticed this before? This was a big deal for me. I once tried to incubate a bunch of lucid dreams for my master's thesis, and I was failing. I was failing miserably, and I was doing all the practices, right? But I was putting too much pressure on myself, and so I was grinding. And I took a break. It was winter holidays, actually. And what happened is I went home and I slept a lot and I rested and I relaxed. And then I began having lucid dream after lucid dream. And I was actually kind of annoyed about this. I was like, what? And I realized what was going on was how important it is to rest, how important it is to incorporate downtime in your practices, because we're not wired to pick up a zillion habits randomly to do a bunch of weird things forever with no hope that it's going to lead somewhere, right? We're just not wired that way. And so take a break. Gosh, these are great questions. All right, so I'm going through, and question is, how do I distinguish between ultra realistic dreams and out-of-body experiences? And I would say that I can't make that choice for you. It depends on your paradigm of reality of what can happen in an out-of-body experience. Because the phenomenology of out-of-body experience or astral projection is different than lucid dreaming. Like, if you look at like what people experience, the limits of what people say is and isn't possible, right? There's differences. And this has nothing to do with what I think, are you actually going out of body or not, or are you actually lucid dreaming in your head or whatnot. It's just noticing the differences of these two states of consciousness. They have some differences, right? So how do you tell the differences? Kind of comes down to you and your own personal gestalt, I would say, right? Your own personal feeling of, this feels realer than real. I feel like I connected with something. Maybe I connected with someone. I don't know. I would start there, right? I don't think that they're the same thing. And I hope that answers the second question here by George, asking about how did they relate. They seem to relate. They seem to be coming out of REM sleep most of the time. But of course, people can have out-of-body experiences spontaneously due to trauma. For instance, like if you're in a car accident, people go out of body in car accidents all the time, right? If your blood pressure drops precipitously, people pop out of body all the time. This is why when folks go into cardiac arrest, there's so many near-death experiences that are occurring. It's a different kind of thing, but they have meshing of qualities. So I love out-of-body experiences. I've had them quite a few times. I experienced them with sleep paralysis myself. I love my sleep paralysis. I wrote a book about this topic. That doesn't mean that I'm not sometimes nervous or scared in my sleep paralysis. I still have to go through my own regimen of grounding myself, touching that lucid ground that I was talking about. But once I do so, I'm able to shift into a lucid dream or go with the flow and see where I end up. And it often does be what I would call an astral projection type experience. And the main thing about it is when it comes to sleep paralysis with lucid dreaming is that very few people do experience it. It is a minority compared to those who don't have sleep paralysis with lucid dreaming. But when you do have it, my advice is this: calm yourself down, remind yourself that this is normal and that this is a piece of biology, that I'm experiencing REM paralysis, nothing more. And if I'm experiencing fear, I think about someone or something that I love or I feel support by. And so you can really lean into your own faith tradition. You can lean into the love you have for a specific person or a place where you feel safe. It's amazing how that can shift, right? If you start becoming curious about your experience, fear naturally diminishes as a result. And so those are some things that I would recommend thinking about with sleep paralysis and lucid dreaming. People do come across it, but it really is a cool launching pad. Sleep paralysis means, hey, guess what? You're an extraordinary dreamer and you're going to have to master that, because what you've got is this ability to move into other states of consciousness with your awareness intact. And that's powerful. I'm seeing a question relatedly about the CPAP machine, about does it affect lucid dreams? And so sleep ap is it involves sleep apnea, and it regulates your sleep, and it also prevents those multiple awakenings in the night, which is good. And this is good for the integrity of REM sleep. And so where the two kind of butt heads is doing sleep interruption practices in the middle of the night. Say if you were to try to meditate for an hour, because you have to mess with your device, right? And that can be a pain, and your motivation might tank. And so lucid dreaming without sleep interruption is probably the way to go if you're integrating a CPAP into your practice. And there's still all kinds of ways to go lucid dreaming without sleep interruption. Here's a question about the course, about 5 webinars. Is it 3 weeks or 5? It's actually 3 weeks, but I'm going to lecture 5 times in 3 weeks. So it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then that last Tuesday. So it's a boot camp, y'all. Like we're gonna be in it together. Thanks for that clarifying question. Let me see. I'm seeing a question by Elaine. Is a early morning nap more effective than a middle of the night awakening? So they're about the same. And it kind of depends on your own physiology. Some people lose the ability to go back to sleep when they try practices, lucid dreaming induction practices, too close to, like if you're after the 6th hour of sleep, and you might just like lose your chance to go back to sleep at all. And so it kind of depends on your own physiology on that. The thing is that after the middle of the night, the REM cycles are longer. The early morning, so you're in your last cycle of REM, it's probably the longest, but it's also the most likely that you'll wake up naturally and perhaps too easily. And so this is something most people, when they become lucid for the first time, it happens in the early morning, and it's probably because the brain's already waking up. And so we already have more cortisol in our blood, and our vigilance is already increasing naturally. And so lucidity, it's natural, it happens, right? And so I would say do your practices for the middle of the night, and then see what comes for the early morning. But it's a tough call. You have to just sort of play and see what happens. And I would say one thing I would add to this is that if you're normally sleeping in, if you're normally, say, waking up at 7 a.m., but then on a weekend, you can sleep in for an extra hour and a half. That is the sweet spot. That's you're changing your circadian rhythm. That's when a lucid dream is really likely to happen. And so let's see. I'm seeing a question. Keep the questions coming, y'all. I love it. I love it. And okay, here's a question from Eric. I've had some issues where I can't see in a lucid dream. Is this something you've heard of or had experience with? Yeah, I've experienced that before. Yeah, that happens sometimes, and that can be really frustrating. And so there are different tactics for dealing with that. Some people have said, and I've tried this too, that if you verbally ask for your sight to return, that sometimes it does. So you can even like make a command, return my sight. I think that's something that Ed Kellogg may have said once, one of my colleagues from the International Association for the Study of Dreams. Sort of just make a command, and the vision's back. Other things you can do is just lean back into the sensories that you do have, right? Without hyperfixating, because when we hyperfixate, we tend to wake up as well. And so if you've lost your vision and you say in your dream you're walking, like notice how the ground feels, right? Notice like the grass beneath your feet. So move into the senses, and the vision sometimes re-emerges as you go back into it. I'm seeing a question from Gary. Will you be talking during the course about the talisman? Oh, great. So yeah, totally. Absolutely. So I have talisman related practices as well. And you don't have to have one of my talismans to do talisman related practices. I have a whole thing on incorporating dream amulets into sleep and into dreaming. And also they're great for sleep paralysis too, because they can help ward off negativity when we set them with positive intention. And so they hold the space for us. So dream amulets are really fun. Seeing a question from Dory, how many hours of REM is it good to have in a night? So this is, again, comes down to personal differences. And you can look at if you track your sleep, you can sort of see what's normal for you. And there are ways that you can try to increase REM sleep, although it's very indirect. It's easier to increase your deep sleep by doing things like exercising before bed, because it releases human growth hormone and it just helps us. So that's an easier way to sort of hack your sleep. Galantamine helps elongate REM. But everyone has there are a lot of individual differences. We don't all dream the same way. We have cycles that we move through, but some people have deep sleep all throughout the night. Some people have segments of REM all throughout the night. Others don't. Like I have my deep sleep all in the first 3 hours, and then I'm done with deep sleep. And that's pretty typical. That's the norm, but not everybody does. And so I recommend checking your baselines and noticing, but I don't know how effective it is trying to hack your particular sleep stages, because I don't think there's a lot of evidence for particular staging matching up with health benefits. And I've seen a question about tips for dream control. And so this is interesting because this is actually something that I don't really have a lot of tips for. And the reason is because dream control isn't really that important to me. And so that's one of my biases, right? This is sort of where I'm coming from with lucid dreaming. I don't try to control my dreams. Though if you take that topic and you sort of like massage it and enlarge it, and I'm into it then. So for instance, like how can I encourage or ask questions to my dream and invite the dream to respond? Now I'm interested, right? So there are tactics for that. And I think Robert Wagner really has done some amazing work talking about asking a question to the dream, using verbal self-reference as a way to get interesting new content out. But I also think there's things like using magic in a dream. So saying a mantra or a spell, or trying to make fire come out of your hands. Like it's interesting because we cognitively get it in the dream that this is a magical world. This is a place to do magic. This is a magical landscape. And so that can be a way to, for instance, if dream control means I want to make a door show up over here and make a door show up. Is that dream control? I mean, it just depends on your definition, right? I guess when I say I'm not into it, I'm not into the idea of like controlling other dream figures, because that gets really icky for me and messy. And I think it could be interpersonally harmful. I think we can hurt ourselves. We can wake up and be like, oh, I overpowered a part of my own being in a dream. Why did I do that? Right. And so maybe it's the phrase dream control that I have a problem with, but try manifesting, try saying a spell or like really using your Harry Potter skills to make things work, because that's really the way to go, I think. Okay, now we're getting a little deep. I'm seeing a question. In my opinion, is lucid dreaming going to another world, or is it just like your imagination has built the world, like a simulation? So this is a tricky question. And I will say that I've had a number of extraordinary experiences that I can't explain from a materialist perspective, involving the transfer of information that have come through dreams and lucid dreams that have left me thinking that there's more, that's possible, that can be explained by typical materialistic science right now. That said, I don't know if a dream is in my head or if I'm out in the world. I don't know if either of those things are really true. I sometimes feel like the experience of it anyway is when I'm in a lucid dream, that the world comes into my space. And so my world grows more porous and becomes larger in the sense that other worlds merge with it. And so I receive access to a larger world. But I don't necessarily think that means that I'm not having cognitive functioning in my brain and in my heart and in my belly, and that if you hooked an EEG up to me, that I'd be in REM sleep, right? I think that they're not mutually exclusive. So I do know and believe, you asked my opinion, that there is uncanny and weird things that can happen through dreams, including visitations that can be very delightful. Time is different in dreams. And the more you get into dreams, you get into the emotional truth of dreaming. We make contact with otherworldly forces, be it a dream or quote unquote real. It is larger than life and it's impactful. It impacts our worldview. And so I'm open to that, but I don't have a theory, that explains it all. I'm seeing a comment now. We're moving back to the middle world now, about people like Einstein and like Tesla cultivated some of their ideas via dreaming. Yes, and so I have heard about some of these cases too, and A lot of inventors have used dreaming and dream solving, Salvador Dali being another one, right? And it could be that they talked about it like lucid dreaming, but it also could be this creative problem-solving aspect of dreaming that generally happens when we are really focused on something in our life, paradigm, conflict, right? Something we're giving birth to something artistically, or a craft, that we continue to think about it, and then we have new solutions emerge in the dream because our rational critic takes a hike, right? There's less of that metacognition. There's more intuition. And so I don't know specifically about Tesla and Einstein if they ever talked about it, but I know that there's lots of folks who have. And what's interesting is that being lucid is not important in those contexts. And so we see this cross-culturally too. We see this because a lot of times anthropologists thought that people weren't having lucid dreams in other cultures, but it turned out to be about a bias that folks in other cultures just assume that that you're dreaming because they have a dreaming lifestyle. And so it's not a big deal to go lucid in a dream. And so they don't focus on it. It's more about, what am I performing? Who am I honoring? Who am I contacting, right? Well, it's relational. And so this focus on my cognition, I'm aware that I'm aware that I'm aware, and isn't that cool, is less important when we move into that sort of foundational, I'd say, intention about what do I want out of this experience? Like, where am I moving? What am I healing? What am I asking for? What am I praying about? Who am I praying to? Mindfulness, meditation, right? And so this piece about lucidity becomes less important. And so people don't talk about it all the time. And so I think that the ethnography is difficult in that way. And some of these historic examples are as well. If you're interested, by the way, in problem solving and lucid dreaming, you should read Deirdre Barrett's book, The Committee of Sleep. And it's a wonderful book that talks about all these wonderful case studies of scientists and inventors and artists who use dreams in general to, for creative solutions. And she also talks about how you can incorporate that into your life. And guess what? It's a lot like lucid dreaming induction. It's a lot like it. Okay, so moving back quickly into supplements. I've read that galantamine and 5-HTP helps you with lucid dreaming. Should I try it? So don't try it together. 5-HTP, we don't have peer-reviewed evidence for 5-HTP for that at all. It is a precursor to melatonin. It really messes with your serotonin. For some people, that can cause all kinds of REM rebound effects, because REM is related to acetylcholine. And long story short, it takes a long route to cause an eruption of vivid dreams, 5-HTP. However, for me, it gave me the night sweats, which was really gross and creepy. And every time I tried it, I just got icked out by it. So it wasn't worth it. So I can't recommend that. Galantamine is safe if it's, it's legal in the US. It's legal, it's over the counter as a supplement. It's not regulated, but if you do your homework. I have on my website an article about galantamine where I talk about this. And my website's dreamstudies.org. And if you were to do a Google search for galantamine, the lucid dreaming pill, and then dreamstudies.org, you'll come across my galantamine page. It'll talk about the research that we've done, as well as the safety precautions, and so the contraindications, because there are some. So even if you're young, but say you have asthma or if you have heart troubles, those are two contraindications that I would not recommend galantamine for. So you do your homework, and it can be very effective. It can be very powerful. I think that I think of it as sort of a sacred plant. It's powerful. All right, I'm going to take one more question, and then I'm going to do some sleeping myself. So I'm seeing this question. Has anyone, this is from Justin, anyone ever do something in a lucid dream that affects the real world? I try to tell dream characters to contact me on an email. So far, none of them have taken me up on it. So yeah, so that's funny. And yet we have lots of reports of mutual lucid dreams from folks that I think is interesting. And I believe that, is it Maria Pita wrote a book on mutual lucid dreaming? Or Linda Magalone, perhaps? There are some works that go into this, and I'd say that it's intriguing to me that some people report dreams and lucid dreams where they seem to be intersecting in the same time space. And so perhaps, if telepathy exists, or shared dreaming, lucidity can be helpful for focusing your intent. Say if you wanted to meet somewhere and see what happens, and then share reports. I believe James Kroll is the co-author on an interesting book. I think it's called Inception: Real Life Tales of Lucid Dreams, something like that. Take a look of it on Amazon. I think it's an ebook. I read it a number of years ago, and I loved the stories. And basically, these two dreamers did this. They met up with each other in their dreams, and they shared dreams, and it's uncanny. And these are people who don't know each other in other aspects of life. They're not friends in other way. They don't live in the same town. And so they created some experiments and then shared, and the results are indeed, make you wonder, like, is this something, is this related to some of this other information gathering that comes out of, say, remote viewing, or that happens with astral projection? And I can't explain it, but yeah, I think so. Now the darker question is, can I lucid dream something and it manifests in the real world? And there was a wonderful short story about that. I believe it was by one of Ursula Le Guin's stories from the 1970s, where she, oh man, anyone here know what that was? Oh gosh, I wish I could remember the title of it. So good though. And the protagonist in the story, every time he had a dream, he woke up and his dream became reality. And he became, of course, very freaked out because he was changing, society. It's called The Laugh of Heaven. That's it. So if you're interested in that topic, check out The Laugh of Heaven. Such a cool sci-fi story. Someone made a movie about it. Can't recommend that. It was before the days of really good effects. But that's an interesting thing. And what does it mean philosophically, right? Like, and I think that when I think about the lucid dreaming effects that come through, the biggest ones are what they do to ourselves, like what we think is possible. And so in that respect, like, I'd say that's the biggest thing that lucid dreaming can do, is like, it just makes things possible. I become my larger self, my truer self emerges. And in the waking world, I'm different, and that changes the world. So I'm going to leave it with that, and thank you all for this, for these wonderful questions. I've really enjoyed it. I can really tell that y'all have moved into some spaces, and I invite you again to check out my course. And if it's not right for you, that's okay too. Check out my ebook. And go to dreamstudies.org and subscribe to my newsletter to make sure you keep up with what I do, the different courses that I teach. I do some free webinars pretty often with different organizations. And I also report on dream research that's going on. So if you ever want to be part of dream research, be a participant of dream research, I try to keep people, abreast of that stuff too. So thanks again. This has been a really fun evening, and I hope that our paths cross again. Sleep well and dream big.